I was looking at the stats before sort of, coming for this conversation, and then I realized that India is comes on like one of the top countries, porn consuming countries, which sets a certain expectation on the consumers or the people who are regular consumers of the porn. They have a certain sort of notion of this is what sex looks like. How do you think that sort of impact our sexual life?
Globally, in the absence of sex education in schools, in the absence of conversations around sex at home, in the internet era, porn has become, one of the most,
The
if
sex
not
education.
the most sort of prominent reference point for sex, right? People, I think in the US, I have a statistic I read, and you can, forgive me if it's not 100% accurate, but you can verify it. I'm pretty sure that this is the stat. It said that 50% of children under the age of 10 or by the age of 10 have stumbled upon porn, whether willingly or unwillingly, meaning either they've just found it, because it's so ubiquitous that even if you're not looking for it, it might find you. You might be downloading music and there's a pop-up, or some friend might send something to you or whatever, right? Even if you're not actively looking for it, it's so central to the structure of the internet that it will find you. It is hard to prevent your child from finding porn. So now we have to understand this and provide the tools to young people to navigate this material that they are likely to stumble upon in an informed way, right? I think in certain countries, in Scandinavian countries, or maybe it's in the Netherlands, again, I'm sorry, I might get the specifics a bit off, but like porn literacy is part of sex education in school, because you want a young person to understand that especially if it's a studio produced mainstream porn, it's highly likely that there are two professional actors doing something that is choreographed, that not just anyone might be able to do, and that just like WWE isn't real sport, or F1 racing would not be an adequate source for you to learn how to drive from. This is material that's produced for adult entertainment. It was never intended for education, and often it also is misogynistic and violent. Often it disregards consent. You rarely see condoms being used. Often the body types on display are a very narrow representation of the great diversity that is out there. So you need not, just because you don't have a body that looks like those bodies doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Or on the other hand, too often it fetishizes, certain races or certain age groups or certain sort of professions or whatever. Porn titles and mainstream porn sites are so demeaning often to certain races, genders, sexual orientations. It depends on what it is, right? So I feel like understanding that will then equip the person to navigate this medium that they might end up stumbling upon a little better. And for some people, that is not to say that all porn is bad. There's also ethically produced porn, which is attempting to serve as this, to mitigate these issues, So if porn is the sex education for young people, how can we create porn that is mindful of all of this stuff, that is representative of a diversity of body types, sexual orientations, etc., that is respectful to all genders, that is also looking at the emotional aspects of sex, that does portray condom usage, and I think that maybe for a young person, especially if their immediate environment is extremely sex negative, let's say you're a young person who's questioning your own sexuality and you're not entirely convinced that just because your parents and everybody else is telling you must love the opposite sex and get married and flana, and maybe that doesn't resonate with you, and you realize that you have that you're gay or that you're bisexual or whatever it is, and you're not allowed to express that in your own immediate environment. Maybe by seeing that represented respectfully in ethical porn, it is validating to you, like, okay, I'm normal, I'm not some freak, people do love other people of the same sex as well, or people do have the same fantasy or curiosity that I do. So to some extent, porn can also be a tool that affirms people, or that does provide something that's beneficial. So I don't want to say, as always, I feel like it's hard to say that any one thing is all bad or all good, right? You have to be aware of the various aspects of how something might impact people and try and harness the pros and mitigate the cons. So, I mean, I think it's so important that we distinguish between, you know, mainstream porn and ethical porn. I think too often on porn sites, especially free porn sites, there isn't even clarity on whether these clips are consensually filmed, were they consensually shared, were they consensually put up on the internet, or is this someone's, you know, video they sent their boyfriend, or is this even a consensual act? I mean, sometimes acts of rape are filmed and put up on the internet, and then other people are consuming that as porn. I mean, that is crazy, right? We need to do more to regulate the medium that arrives on the materials that arrive on the internet, and make sure on a very basic level that consent is a part of that process on all grounds, right? That the act is consensual, that it was consensually filmed, and that it was consensually disseminated. And then we come to all the other stuff that, you know, does it need to be so violent or misogynistic or fetishizing of like non-white people or certain body types or whatever. And so therefore I would think that anybody who is consuming porn or does enjoy consuming porn should make the effort to look for ethical porn and be willing to pay for it, because just like any other thing in life, if you're not paying for it, somewhere something exploitative is probably happening in order for it to reach you for free.